Thank you, Alexander. So this was Alexander Plantrich who introduced us to the today's afternoon event with Schumann's Remembrances of the Theater Untitled Song. Thank you, and thank you all for gathering here today. So this afternoon session is going to be moderated by my colleague at the Faculty of Theology. He's a researcher. He just made his PhD thesis from the topic of AI, namely ethics in AI, questions of transparency. He would be a wonderful addition to the panel as a speaker, but today we invited him to moderate the session. So Jonas Miklaucic, Jonas, I invite you now to introduce the section.
So first of all, thanks to Marco for these kind words, and I would also like to thank you all for being here, and of course to the organizers for letting me be here too. So the idea for this afternoon section is that we will first have a roughly 45-minute lecture from our esteemed guest, Laura Knight from UK. Then we will have about 15 minutes for questions from the audience. After that, we will have a 15-minute break. And after the break, there will be a roundtable, which we will kickstart by 3 presentations from experts of AI from Slovenia, and then a roundtable where you will be again invited to ask any questions. So without further ado, let me introduce guest Laura Knight. She's a digital learning expert and consultant and has been a teacher for 20 years. She was previously director of digital learning at Berkhamsted School, and she's an expert in digital leadership in education. She has broad-ranging expertise in technology for teaching and learning, artificial intelligence, staff training in digital skills, digital well-being, online safeguarding, and many more. And I should mention that she has recently written a book about AI for teachers. So without further ado, Laura, please.
Thank you. Wonderful, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. We don't need that one, thank you very much. So my job today is to talk about artificial intelligence to us as a collective. And I'm talking to us as teachers. I'm also talking to us all as learners and as leaders, because we are all 3 of those things. If we work with young people, we teach, we lead, we learn. So let me tell you a little more about myself. As I said, thank you for your lovely introduction. I have been a teacher for 20 years, and first and foremost, I'm a French teacher. But my interest in technology has always been present. And so I moved into working on digital education over 10 years ago now. I've been very fortunate to work at a wonderful group of schools about 40 minutes away from London, which is very innovative, proudly innovative, and has a really positive approach to digital technology. We've had one-to-one digital devices with Microsoft for all of our students for about 5-6 years now. And so this is it's a wonderful sneeze. Congratulations on that one, and bless you. So all of our students have had one-to-one devices in the classroom since before COVID. And this has enabled us to thrive in a period of a lot of change and challenge, and has meant that our students from the age of 9 up to when they leave at 18 are all used to using digital devices as their normal way of working. So this is a very established practice for us now. I've been leading on training and strategy. We've done a lot of work on well-being and the safeguarding aspects of online life with students, as well as thinking about pedagogy and teaching and learning. And so I'm here as a teacher as much as somebody who supports teachers. This afternoon, I'd like to talk through some ideas for us to learn together. And I want to think about understanding the technology first, Because we talk a lot about AI, but actually how do we think about it as teachers is a really important question. I'd also like to think about how we define the mission of educating young people in this changing world where technology is moving all the time. I'd like us to think about the opportunities to transform teaching and learning, and some of the concepts, the key philosophical ideas that we should hold on to. We'll talk a little about risks and challenges, and specifically about ethical considerations, which I know was something we will probably discuss further at the round table, and also think about what is next. Okay. Sound all right? Yeah? Good. So first, one of the things I do when I talk to teachers about artificial intelligence is show them this slide, because actually it's quite an uncomfortable question. Lots of people know a little, some people know a lot, but the reality is that many of us are a little confused around what AI actually is. And so I think, first of all, we accept that it is an umbrella term, a collection of technologies that have existed for a long time. These concepts have been around for ages. I'll show you a timeline in a second. But what I think is key is that we understand that some of these technologies have existed in our world for many, many years and are a normal part of society. There are other technologies that are new, specifically generative AI, that has existed now, just gone 18 months, we're into the second year. And that has changed the way we have perceived AI, because all of a sudden, this technology can create, it can generate output. And that for us is important in education. It is a lever, an opportunity for all sorts of interesting strategies. But I do like to remind people that AI is not new. The concept first thought about 70 plus years ago. And actually, when we adjust our sat-nav to avoid the traffic, when we are really pleased that our bank has intercepted a potentially fraudulent credit card transaction, when we log into Netflix or Spotify or any of those platforms which carefully curate an experience for you, AI is there. It may not be visible, but it is there. And many people think, well, if we're talking about AI, we must be thinking about robots. Or perhaps we're thinking about virtual reality and there's a headset involved. And so let's be clear that that's not the case. When we're talking about generative AI, it might look just like a search engine. It might just be a chatbot. It might even look like you're interacting with a human, and you may not even know. So all of these things are important because we have to understand what we're dealing with to use it well. Now, I have been asked a lot over recent years, should we be thinking about AI as a threat or an opportunity? And I honestly get very grumpy about this question. I'm bored, you see. I'm bored of the fact that as educators, we can't take a more nuanced approach to this question. It's absolutely okay for it to be both an opportunity and a threat. And really, what's important is that it is an inevitability. It's happening. We've been talking in several conversations today about how it is happening and it exists. So the fact that there is still a debate going on about if is unhelpful. When is the one we want. Now, I also think what's useful here is to notice how predictable our patterns are when we respond to new technology. It's the same as it always ever has been, whether you look at television, whether you look at DVDs, whether you look at mobile phones or iPads or Wi-Fi. The way that human beings respond to technological innovation is wonderfully predictable. we get very excited first. Very, very excited. There's a lot of hype, big energy, lots of investment. And then something interesting happens. Suddenly we notice that the technology isn't actually all that perfect after all. It isn't capable of everything and solving all the world's problems. Actually, it's disruptive. It causes trouble. It makes a mess. It challenges our systems and processes and rules. Gosh, that's annoying. So, what can follow the hype is actually quite a difficult time. And I would argue, I don't know if you agree with me, I would argue that we are tipping past that peak with generative AI and heading into this trough of disillusionment, this difficult time, where we are wrangling with rules and policies and change, and it's uncomfortable. Now, as teachers, learners, and leaders, in all three of those roles, we can accelerate that process in our little worlds with wisdom and learning and careful thought. Because actually what we need is to create good habits, strong policies, excellent learning, and to hold on to our expertise about our jobs and create something powerful. Productivity and enlightenment both sound quite good to me. I think those are things that we should aim to get to quickly. Okay, so how can we do that? How can we move quickly into productivity and enlightenment? Well, first, we need to hold on to the vision for the school, for the classroom, for the individual pupil. What is it we're trying to achieve? Now, that will depend on your context and what your school is all about and what you're aiming for. Personally, for me, it's about flourishing. I want to create potential and opportunity for a young person to go out into the world and flourish, to succeed in whatever way they wish to open doors to possibility. So for that vision, what do we need to put in place? Well, let's think. The vision's foundations are going to be based on some values that are going to be super important, because when we challenge process and when we struggle with policy, the values are what we can rely on. Integrity, truth, kindness, citizenship, care, faith. If we can rely on those things, we can make good decisions when we don't know what the right answer is. Next is an interesting one. For us to make good decisions, we need to understand the possible. We need to give this a shape. If we don't know what we don't know, the temptation is to stay closed in our little world and keep things the same. Instead, how can we explore the art of the possible? How can we open up adventure? That's quite difficult for teachers. It's not that we don't want to. Whether you are 1 year into your career or 1 year away from retirement, we are all learners. But if you know something works and you trust it, it's really tempting to keep things the same, because you don't want to let your students down by getting something wrong. It's understandable. So my suggestion is, to explore the possible, we have to give ourselves an opportunity to be like the children. We need to play. Experimentation through play, silliness, laughter, getting things wrong and it being funny, that's fine when you're 8 years old. When you're in your mid-40s like me, it's uncomfortable, but it's good for us. It's good for us to play, and it's how we explore what's possible. Next, velocity. Let's think about speed. In the UK, with our academic year running like yours, starts in September, finishes in the summer, go, 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 breathe. And do it all again. Now, we have to make decisions at carefully timed points in the year about change. It's very difficult to make a decision to change something big in October. After the school year has started, everyone is on the mission to get the job done. You want to change things? Gosh, that's complicated. Can't it wait till next year? And this means we are very slow, because we have to wait a whole academic year to come around before we're ready to start something big. I challenge you to make small changes, little changes, this week, next month, and build them gently, rather than feel like everything has to wait until it's enormous and do it once a year, because that's not sustainable or helpful for your stress levels. It makes change feel impossibly big. In the mix too, we need to consider the culture in the staff room, the culture among families and parents, the culture among our classes of students. I would argue that we need to take ownership of new technology as adults and stop giving all the power to the children, assuming that they know everything. They don't. They really don't. They are naive experts at best. Often, they just know how to use 2 thumbs very fast on Roblox or something, right? And that's not expertise in anything useful for learning. We have to teach them. We have to create a culture where we are giving them the learning experience they deserve from their teacher, who has command and control as well as expertise. And too often we assume, oh, it's technology, you know best, you sort it out, you do it. Let's take the ownership for ourselves. But in order to do that safely and happily and productively, we need rules. Rules keep us safe. Psychological safety comes from knowing what doing the right thing is and doing the wrong thing is. If you're not sure if you're going to get into trouble, it means you don't try. So we need to be clear on where the boundaries are. And it's important. We can be both pro-tech and pro-boundaries at the same time. We don't have to make technology a problem. It can be a wonderfully positive thing and have rules. We can hold both. And finally, the final piece of that puzzle is policy. Nobody is going to get glamorous awards and red carpet ceremonies for creating a beautiful policy, which is very sad. I have written many beautiful policies. And those in school who are responsible for policy writing will know that this is unglamorous. It's not fun. Nobody ever thanks you. But it's so important. It gives shape to what everyone needs in terms of routines and structures and consequences. It also gives us an opportunity to shape what we celebrate. If we can make space in our policies to celebrate excellence, that immediately gives everyone something to hope for and to work towards. Okay. So, some thoughts about how we approach these things now. And I want to give you some ideas to help you recognize the challenges in this space. The first idea is borrowed from game theory. And Simon Sinek has written an excellent book about this, if you're interested in more. But if we imagine all the world's games, we can divide them into 2 categories. Infinite games, finite games. A finite game is a game where there is a winner and a loser. You play, you win or lose, it's done. It could be a race, it could be a match. An infinite game is different. An infinite game exists before you joined, it will exist after you've left. You join for the pleasure of being part of it, but it's bigger than you or any one of its players. School, which side? Infinite. School is an infinite game. All of us are part of something much bigger than any individual. All of us are part of something that will go on having an impact for many, many years after we are doing the work. Maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, there will be children from this school living their lives, parenting their children, doing their work because of what they experienced here with you. The problem we have, if this is the infinite game, and school is infinite, technology companies are finite. Win or lose. Go fast or miss out. Get investment or fail. Take risks or have your competitors beat you. And this go fast or miss out ideology and messaging comes into education, and it's difficult. It's difficult because it creates tension. Teachers doing their best to teach don't want to hear that they're missing out. It's not helpful. So we have to hold on to infinite school and remember this, and then choose the best of all of the other things in the world, whether it's content, technology, or strategy, and say we're going to choose this for our children and invest it in that infinite game methodology. But the problem we have, of course, is that it's so messy. Innovation is chaotic. It can feel out of control, disordered, difficult. Often, your best innovators in school are the staff who get into trouble the most often too. I know, because I maybe think I am possibly one of those people. But innovation is hard because you are challenging the old ways. You're making suggestions or trying things out that can be disruptive. How can we channel this carefully? How can we help it thrive without it feeling destructive or destabilizing? Okay. Now, this is aspirational in good ways. But let's imagine we were all in charge of a school together, and we were putting together our plans for our digital strategy for 2030. And I'm going to suggest what we might need in that strategy. What would be the ingredients for success? And this is my suggestion. It's intense, and I'm not sorry about that. So first up, I think that we need a big pillar at the bottom, which is about artificial intelligence, and specifically generative AI, but not just generative AI. Connected to that is adaptive, accessible learning. Children with disabilities, with learning difficulties, neurodivergent children, if we raise the bar and improve the experience for them, we improve the experience and outcomes for everyone. Everyone benefits from better accessibility. We need multiple agile literacies. That means children who have digital skills, citizenship skills, emotional literacy, so that they can engage positively with digital and analog life. We need ethical frameworks that make it clear what is the right thing to do and what isn't, especially when it comes to some of the complex things that we know are difficult around plagiarism, for example. Then we're going to need to do really great things with data. Data is a hugely powerful part of these coming years. Schools gather in so much information about their students, and often the stories don't get told, or don't get told very well, about what those numbers all mean. But we also need to be very careful about the data we create and the data we share about ourselves and our students in ways that we have not had to worry about before, especially in this space of new generative AI platforms. We're going to need to think about devices, but devices are not the only thing, and you'll notice it's a very small section here. I feel quite strongly that if schools say, right, we need a digital strategy, let's go and buy some computers. They go shopping. And that's lovely, but it's so limited. The device alone is not a strategy. We need to make sure that everyone everywhere can access what they need to at the speed that is appropriate in a way that is safe. It's trickier than it sounds. Okay. So, at this point, when being challenged about change, a lot of people kind of look around uncomfortably, thinking, well, I'm sure I'm not qualified enough for this. Maybe there's somebody who's more senior than me that can care about this. I would say no. You are absolutely qualified enough to be an agent of change. And if not you who is here investing in your professional development, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Why wait? I encourage you to be courageous. Okay. Let's think in more detail about transforming learning and what this means potentially in the classroom. Now, there's some technical wizardry perhaps behind the scenes here. But what I want to notice is how powerful generative AI can be as something to enrich, amplify, and extend the learning in school. Not replace the teacher, definitely not. But extend, amplify, absolutely. And there are some interesting ways we can do that with customized experiences, making things feel personalized, adapting to what students need, but also just removing some of the delays. We've talked about attention spans today and how delayed gratification, patience, waiting, boredom, all of those things are very difficult for this generation of young people. I think generative AI gives us an opportunity to make things move faster in a way that feels good for young learners who want to get on. I think there's great potential to develop dynamic assessment opportunities. And by dynamic, I mean instead of one single question paper that we recycle every year and that the children probably, kind of pass on to their younger brothers and sisters, creating much more secure banks of questions that are adaptive so that when students are going through that assessment, they're each getting their own version of the paper. It is secure, and it's giving everyone an opportunity to reach the threshold of their experience and knowledge and skill, and then be challenged past it to see how they do. I think that's very empowering. I also think there's a way to make learning feel personable and human in ways that we haven't been able to with technology in the past. Because the possibilities for natural language processing, which is the technology that's behind the scenes of Siri and Alexa, we can use that kind of thing to make learning, especially for younger children, so much easier and less connected and dependent on text alone, because literacy is a massive barrier. We heard from your lovely colleague earlier about reading and how difficult it can be to engage students in reading. And actually, generative AI producing huge volumes of text is fine if we're accomplished and comfortable readers. But for our students who find that really too difficult, intimidating, don't want to engage, more text is not going to help. Let's think about alternatives. Next, I'd like to think about how we can lift the educational experience into something more profound. Memory is a really interesting thing. We remember things that are remarkable. But if I asked you to remember what maths was like, or history was like, when you were 12, how many individual lessons can you actually remember? I'm going to probably guess almost none, unless something ridiculous happened. I remember one maths lesson from when I was that age. And it was when my Scottish maths teacher got very, very cross with us. Very, very cross with us, because there was a B in the classroom during a test, and no one could concentrate. She was furious. But I don't remember anything else. Now, if we want us to create learning experiences that are more remarkable than a bee in a classroom, we're going to need to think about engagement. We're going to need to think about ways to hold and capture attention and to ensure that we are generating opportunities for inspiration. Now, that's hard on a rainy Thursday afternoon in November. It takes a lot of energy. We are not performers. However, we have help. And I think we can use generative AI to create powerful experiences with technology for young people. Role plays, simulations, making things that are abstract and difficult to understand into something tangible. Making visualizations that are customized to their needs. Looking at opportunities to bring expertise into your classroom that you don't normally have access to. Specialist knowledge, amazing case studies, lived experience. All of these have a scope to bring inspiration into the classroom in ways I think we should take seriously. But how do we deliver that experience to teachers? Teachers have to be learners too. Now, we're very dedicated in creating excellent experiences for our students, but sometimes we don't take the same care about our own learning. Sometimes we shortchange ourselves. But I would argue it's absolutely key for us to invest in our learning at this stage as teachers, and I recognise I'm preaching to the converted because you are all here. But when you go back to be in your teams, with your colleagues, I would think carefully about how you have a wonderful opportunity to develop them too. Helping people understand concepts rather than a product is key. And then show them. Show them what it can do. Play together, experiment, explore, make it silly. Have a laugh. And you will find then that trying something for themselves feels less intimidating. Giving people case studies and principles means that highly professional, educated people are very capable of exploring on their own, once they have the confidence and the examples to try. But we need to understand that if it doesn't work the first time, we shouldn't give up. I was quite cross with my students, they're about sort of 17 years old, earlier this year, and I said to them, tell me about your experiences with generative AI. And at the time, ChatGPT was the thing everyone was using. Oh, and they said, two of the boys turned to me and said, oh, Mrs. Knight, it's rubbish. I said, it's rubbish? Oh yeah, it's just like says nonsense, things that aren't true and stuff. The thing is, they had tried one prompt, a terrible one, and then had thought, oh, it doesn't work. Give up. No resilience, no curiosity. The problem is human beings are quite often like that. And as teachers, we are so demanding of what we put in front of our students that if something looks like, oh, it's rubbish, bin it. We don't give things a second chance. But in this case, the experience we have with generative AI is a conversation. It's a dialogue. It's iterative. It's not like search, where it's one and done. It's a gradual process of tweaking, improving, adding, pruning, growing a response until you get to the point that you didn't even perhaps know was possible. One and done? No. Okay. Now I'd like to move into a more philosophical space, if that's okay. Is that okay? Yeah, you're with me? You're awake? Good. There will be caffeine soon, I promise. Okay. Now, let's talk about some key concepts I think you should hold on to when you're thinking about new technology and specifically artificial intelligence, because these are things that are going to cause conflict or challenge or might just be confusing. The first is the ownership of ideas. So I'm in my mid-40s. When I was at school, if I wrote the essay myself, fine. If I copied the essay off my friend, or I took chunks out of a textbook and pretended it was mine, not fine. It was that easy to tell whether the idea was mine or not mine. Now, today, with co-creation that is possible with generative AI, the line between an idea being yours or not yours is so fuzzy and indistinct. And that's really tricky. It's really tricky when we want to measure progress, when we want to look at, well, what does this student know? What do they understand? So we need to think carefully about the ownership of ideas and what it means to fully understand something and demonstrate it. I would argue that it is not just about the outcome of the task. It's not just the essay. It's not just the mathematical calculation. It's not just the performance. It's the process to reaching it. And if you can see the journey along the way, you can see whether that journey has integrity, has growth, has understanding. Otherwise, we risk shortcuts here. Okay. My next challenging idea is the one of agency. What I mean by this is giving people choice and control about how they learn and what they do. As adults, when we work in a school, often we have a certain amount that is required of us and a certain amount that is left to your professional judgment. However, in a space where there is new technology that's disruptive and the rules aren't clear, people who are frightened are instantly going to say, you can't do this, you can't do that, this is blocked, that is banned, because that's our response to being frightened. But actually, that isn't always helpful. We don't learn how to use the tools if we block and ban them. We don't see all of the benefits. So let's think instead about how we create a sense of confidence about choosing the right thing to do. How do we trust our students to choose the right thing to do? Interesting. Okay, my next challenging thought is about creativity. Now this one is interesting because it is so divided. We've had some great conversations today about how generative AI can create opportunities for creativity. It can democratize creativity. It can make the obstacles and the barriers to producing creative output, whether it's poetry or art or whatever, it can reduce those so that it's possible for everyone. It doesn't say it will be any good, but the scope is there. What's also challenging though, and in this place, in this moment, we've seen it specifically, is that art and creativity requires struggle. It requires commitment and dedication and practice and practice and practice and practice. And if we undermine the value of human endeavor, are we losing something of ourselves? We also need to ask the question, if our creative output is tinged or even polluted by generative AI and it isn't human anymore, what does that mean for us as a society when there's tens of thousands of years potentially of growth in that space? Tricky. Okay. This is a difficult one. This is a difficult one because this year, politically, globally, we are going to see some big moments. 2016 was a big year. I say that as a British person who watched the US presidential elections happen and Brexit happen, and in both cases, the public was manipulated by social media in some ways that we now know were terrifying. 2016 is going to look like child's play when we consider what is likely to happen this year. We have European elections, we have US presidential elections. In my country too, we have leadership elections. And the manipulation of people into believing something that is not true, terrifying. So we're going to have to work hard on the idea of truth, helping children and colleagues understand what truth is and how to find it, and how to check it, and how to know what to believe. And with that comes the concept of integrity. At the heart of an institution, we need a clear understanding about doing the right thing, even when nobody is looking. The problem is, humans are fallible. We are all capable of making terrible choices when we are exhausted or stressed, or just busy. And so when we are taking shortcuts ourselves, we have to recognize our own difficulties with this. And we know that the children will have those difficulties too. So we need to be realistic about it. And then we have to trust people. We cannot monitor every decision every child and every adult makes about using technology. We can't. It's not possible. We have to make the expectations appropriate. We have to make the consequences for the poor choices robust. And then we need to trust people. But I want to talk finally, my last point here, about resilience. There's a lot of conversation about resilience in my part of the education sector. And it's quite masculine, it's quite macho. You've got to be tough, you've got to keep going. You've got to struggle, but it's good. I would argue that resilience is a state of stress that is not actually very helpful for us to be in the long term. It's not sustainable. Burnout follows. So instead what we need is something on the other side of resilience. Calm acceptance of change, happily bubbling along like, oh, that's changed again, no problem, keep going. Not panic, something more relaxed and accepting. Okay, now I want to just talk quickly as we head into the back part of my presentation about risks and challenges and ethical considerations, because I feel that this is important. Now, I wanted to mention what you said earlier about the hammer and the screws because we're so aligned. There was a lovely moment when we were talking about choosing the right tool for the job. I tend to be more exaggerated when I say you would not build an IKEA wardrobe by going to collect your chainsaw. That would be ridiculous. So we need to be able to choose the right tool for the job, and so do our students. There are thousands of tools. There will be millions of tools available. Some of them will be great. Some of them will be terrible. And the vast majority will be mediocre at best. So selecting the right tool and the good tool is so powerful. And knowing how to recognize a good tool when you see it is something that your colleagues will be very envious of. However, we need to be careful, because not all tools are perfect. Many of them have problems written into them, and this one in particular is a big problem. Bias is baked into our society, especially questions around gender, questions around ethnicity and race, especially those, but also disability and many other issues too. Unfortunately, there's been some research recently that has shown that the bias that is present in our world is magnified. It's more serious. It's more obvious in many generative AI outputs. For example, and I say this as a feminist standing before you, a woman in technology, already an unusual thing. If you ask DALL-E or other generative AI platforms to produce imagery about professions, engineer, chef, driver, astronaut, the results will disproportionately be male, white and male, by the way. There will be some, maybe 1 out of 4 of them will be female, always young, always smiling. Because women in this space are often seen as ornamental, not professional. We need to be careful about that. When we're showing images to the children that we teach, especially the girls, that says, by the way, folks, being an astronaut, that's for boys, that's not okay. We need to challenge it. We need to see it. We need to make sure that we are selective and aware. I feel very strongly about it. And I feel like it's also important in the spaces that we occupy physically that we are bringing that attention to as well. So wherever we're using resources, we should be challenging them in front of the children and say, gosh, that's terribly biased. What do you notice? Oh, you've noticed that there's no women here. Ah, that's no good, is it? It should be 50-50. We need to show that to them so that they know how to challenge it themselves. Next is a big issue around data, and I know this is probably your thing. But the challenges we have around data and the, well, how do I want to say this? The lack of transparency around the information we share and where it goes and what happens to it is really difficult. It's difficult especially because we work with children and their data is sensitive and needs protecting. So we have to work hard, especially too because of the freemium model that many AI-powered platforms use. If you're using something that's free, you are the product, your data, your attention. And so that means children using free platforms should ring alarm bells. Another thing that should ring alarm bells is the problem of a lack of equity in this space. There are many privileged youngsters who will have wonderful access through great device schemes and brilliant connectivity to generative AI, and there are others who will never see it, and that doesn't seem right to me. I think we should all take opportunities to broaden access wherever we can. And we're going to need to teach the children how to use it well. We're going to have to show them what the right decision to make is. We're going to need to model that even when we are not sure ourselves. Demonstrate it. And finally, in this piece, we have to think about what is appropriate for each age of child that we teach. What is appropriate for an 8-year-old is not appropriate for a 13-year-old. And perhaps by the time a child is 16 or 18, they can see the world a little differently, but it should not be the same view as their younger peers. We must be careful about age appropriateness because generative AI does not understand this, and we cannot consistently predict the output. And of course, there is a question around safeguarding. It's too much for all of us to deal with the detail today, but cyberbullying, a big problem. Manipulation, a big problem. Vulnerable young people finding it difficult to work out what's true, a big problem. Fake news, deep fakes, harassment. I worry about these things, but I especially worry about synthetic intimacy, where a machine is creating a sense of trusting friendship or romance even with a young person that they believe to be real and human. That, for me, is a big concern. Okay. So what's next? Well, first, we need to think about what excellence looks like now. As things change, as generative AI becomes part of our technology landscape, how does that mean we adapt our idea of excellence? What do we keep? And what do we say goodbye to? And we should say goodbye to some things. There are some things about education that do not represent success. They are fake success, if you like. Children, I say to my colleagues at home, a child, okay, I'll say it this way, there is not a single child that you teach who will get their first promotion at work because they write neatly and underline the title beautifully for you. Not a single one. But yet, so often we praise those things. What should we be praising? Not passive compliance, that's for sure. The next thing to hold on to is this idea of, are we there yet? Why aren't we done? Surely we could finish this digital thing and go back and do our jobs now. No, sorry. Digital is your job now, and it will be from here on. It's going to be part of the world, and it's not going anywhere. So, I will come back to my very first idea, that we want flourishing, we want growth. We want to make sure that the children we teach go on to live successful and wonderful lives. And so our job now is to plant the seeds for that future success, to give them the creativity, the hope, the optimism, the learning, the knowledge, the skill, to handle whatever life throws at them. That's me done. Thank you very much. This is the book that I've just finished writing. It will be out later in the year. So it's a short guide for teachers to help use generative AI. So I hope it might be useful to you.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this very interesting presentation. Since we're a bit late and a bit behind our schedule, I would like to propose that we take the questions from the audience later during the roundtable. Just to end this section before break, I would like to ask a bit of a broader question.
Sure.
And you mentioned that AI, when used in education, should not replace teachers, right? But there was rather a small survey made in the past months here in Slovenia. Teachers were asked about what they think about implementation of AI in their teaching processes, and one of the concerns that came up was precisely the idea that...
Do you think they were imagining robots coming into their classroom and like taking over in a sort of sci-fi movie style?
I think that might very well be part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you, so how should we really think about AI in education? Do you think that AI technology will fundamentally transform the way education works, or rather we're talking about basically assisting teaching tools that are not very different in a qualitative sense?
So I think we need to see education as part of a much bigger societal ecosystem. And I think AI is going to fundamentally shift the whole ecosystem. So if you change the future of work, you change the future of university study and qualifications. Therefore, you change the emphasis and the goals around school. Society is shifting. The way that we consider employment is shifting. I think, so in the UK, there has been traditionally a very narrow approach to education. You go to a good school, you do your exams, you get your qualification. You go to a good university, you do your exams, you get your qualification. You go and get a nice job, and mummy and daddy are happy. The problem is that actually this creates a lot of debt. There's a huge amount of financial commitment to these qualifications. And when you can make 10,000 euros a week on TikTok, why would you do it? So there is a new approach to qualifications, a new approach to work that is more entrepreneurial, more flexible, more stackable with micro-credentials that you were talking about earlier, that I think will disrupt in reverse what happens in education. Because children will say, well, why should I do this? What's the point? Why should I do this when my future success is not going to be helped by it? And I think we have to be honest. And it's a difficult question to answer, but how can we make sure that we're not just training children to go through a whole system of education only to arrive at the end and be outperformed by machines? Because if we can't produce a child at the end of school who is better, more productive, more valuable to a company, or a business or a university or their own company than ChatGPT is, then we have failed. And I would suggest a lot about the traditional curriculum approach is too much about basic knowledge acquisition, but not schema, like just retention, and that's not enough. So yeah, I think we will have to change, but I think it will not replace teachers. It will just modify approach.
Exactly what I was thinking. I do agree. It can be, both things can be true at the same time. So the education can fundamentally change without AI stealing teachers' jobs, right?
Agreed, because it's not that simple.
Yeah. Thank you very much for Laura. I would like to invite you all for coffee and for a 15-minute break, and we will continue after around 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Went on a little long, thank you. Let me take this off.
digital champion of Slovenia at European Commission. So, Marko, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much. So unfortunately, I cannot be with you. I'm in Vienna. It's one of these more important AI conferences which happen during the year. So just to give you an impression, right? So here are like 6,000 people, right? We have 2,000 papers, and you can see the future of AI here, right? So things which you will kind of experience maybe in your lives, maybe in a year or two, right? So we can see these things here. So it's kind of quite exciting, yeah. And a person like me, like, feels humbled in a way, seeing all this huge progress, right? Okay. Let me share my screen. I have a couple of slides. I don't have too much time, so I think we are behind the schedule anyway, right? I'll try to be as fast as possible. I have material for a couple of hours of talking, but not sure. Jonas, can you allow me to share the screen?
We're working on it.
Okay. It's not hard work.
I think it should work.
Yeah, it works now, yeah. Okay, as said, so I'm Marko. I'm from this JSI, the Josef Stefan Institute, and also UNESCO. So I've been in this AI field so last year was 40 years. When I was young high school student, somehow I joined this AI. I got excited, and still I'm now even more excited in a way, right? But okay, let's maybe just to complement Laura's talk, really, right? I was listening and correcting slides while during her talk, so I think I will complement more like on the technical side, and I hope also Irina and Andrei will complement this my information. First, why do we talk about AI now, right? Why not maybe 2 years ago or 3 years and so on, right? Laura said to some degree that, yeah, there was this ChatGPT happened, or as we call it, ChatGPT moment, right? Yeah, but why? Let's put this in a context, right? So what AI was trying to do for last 70 years, or a little bit more noticeable in maybe in last 30 years, somehow to mimic human capabilities, right? And human has many capabilities. The primary senses are vision, hearing, understanding, intellectual work, and so on, right? And just not to be too long, right? So here's one graph. How, let's say, from mid-90s, right? How from mid-90s systems, which we can say that they were coming from this artificial intelligence community, how they were progressing, right? So here we have one very basic skill, handwriting recognition, right? So this was kind of easy, and somehow this was already kind of good around 2005, and now it progressed even more. Now, if you look like speech recognition, maybe you remember, 20 years ago, computers didn't really understand our speech. Now, every kid has a phone which understands his speech and so on. Images, pictures, way more difficult, right? So in early 2000s, basically there were, tons of people were trying to do something, but nothing was really successful. Now, well, machines can see, right? Then, well, the last, really the last fortress, or the last thing which really we couldn't do with machines was language understanding. With language we were dealing for decades already, but somehow there was nothing which was actually close to understanding, right? And so this is what happened now in kind of 2022 when this ChatGPT came. So this was this breakthrough where machines started kind of understanding, but they really don't understand the text. They just mimic understanding, right? And so that's why we talk about AI. So this graph, maybe just to explain, so this line up here, this is how well a human performs on these tasks. Human is also not optimal, right? Makes mistakes. But now machines somehow surpassed humans in all these skills. That's why AI is kind of relevant now and maybe a little bit less a few years ago, let's say. Before COVID, there was nothing on this front. Good. Now, maybe just a few thoughts to be a little bit more technical, how ChatGPT actually works. I mean, this is like accurate but kind of simplified picture, right? So on the input, first maybe to explain, can we do ChatGPT here in Slovenia? No, we cannot. You know, can anybody in Europe do ChatGPT? No, it cannot, right? Not even including UK and so on. Why not? Because simply we don't have that large computers as, let's say, this couple of big companies, and this includes Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta. So that's it, right? So there's no fifth company, basically, which can do something what we can use now as ChatGPT. There are smaller companies which can do weaker versions, but not really what we experience on the machine these days, right? Like with ChatGPT 4.0, which is still kind of considered as the best one, right? So what they did, right? So they put pretty much everything what was what's on the web, everything what was ever digitized in the form of a human text inside. So I remember discussing with my colleague from Google, right, which has this competing product. Back then it was called Lambda, now it's called Gemini. He said, we will stay soon out of data. So there's not much more data which one can put into this systems, right? Okay, so they took pretty much everything what was accessible on the web or in the digital form, and then they used this neural networks and this new algorithm, fairly new algorithm called transformer, and they compressed this text so into a set of numbers, really, right? And this is what we call neural network, right? And now in this compressed human knowledge, right, a human can talk to, right? And this is what ChatGPT is, right? Now, how big it is, right? Actually, it's not that big. One would be surprised. So early versions were really big, right? But just recently, two, 3 weeks ago, there was an update. Well, those who know it, it's called Llama 3, right? Which is as good as what you can experience with ChatGPT, right? So this is like 70 gigabytes, not much more, really. 70 gigabytes, this is what you can store on a memory. This is how big it is. But to calculate this 70 gigabytes, this means 70 billion numbers, really, right? For this, you need extremely large infrastructure. So this means like almost a huge data center, which in Europe, basically nobody can afford having it, or even if we have it, then we wouldn't be able to run it for a couple of months. So this is what ChatGPT is. Maybe for you, next question would be, what is neural network? Now, I don't have much time, but still, I'll try to show you quickly, right? To skip this text, I will show you a quick demo, how a neural network looks like, right? Okay, this small neural network won't try to understand text, but will just solve simple problem of separating blue dots from these orange dots, right? Let's make this neural network really small, right? And we run it, and you see on the right side, hope you see, so how neural network tries to separate blue dots from yellow dots. It's not succeeding, actually, right? Okay, we will increase the brain of neural network, so we will add one more neuron. So we added one more neuron, and now, okay, it's a little bit better, right? A little bit better, but still it's not able to separate completely. Okay, let's increase the brain a little bit more. So we will add one more small neuron, right? And now, okay, let's add one more neuron, and then now I think should be enough. Right? Yeah, now it's enough. You see, now it managed to separate blue dots from red dots. Okay, but this is very simple problem. Now, if we would make a little bit more nasty problem, you see now how these red dots are kind of strangled into blue dots, right? So this simple neural network wouldn't be enough, right? So it wouldn't be able to separate this, right? Now, but if we increase the brain of neural network significantly, now, I mean, this is still very small neural network, right? Let's say I'm just adding these couple of neurons, right? Now, I think it should be able to. Now I run this neural network, right? And I hope it will. The machine is a little bit slow now. Okay, believe me that this works. Maybe it will. Okay, just not to spend too much time. Maybe at the end I can return to this example, right? Two more clicks. Yeah, let's go back to the slides. Otherwise, we won't have time for the rest, right? Now, couple of thoughts first, right? What are the major positive consequences of this modern AI? And this modern AI, let's say, ChatGPT is a good representative of it. So first, it operates with the most of human knowledge which is out there. And its major or most significant feature is that it can significantly broaden our views to the world, right? In the same way, you know, going to the library, suddenly we have access to the knowledge. But maybe you remember in 90s when web appeared. Internet or web is not forever around, right? So it happened in 1993. So this was a moment where we got access suddenly to the global knowledge. Or later when search engines and Google appeared, right? Suddenly this was just a few clicks away, right? Pretty much everything what human did or put on machines, right, was suddenly accessible. This was one important element, step or one important breakthrough in a way in our recent history, right? Now with ChatGPT we can do much more, right? Now this ChatGPT, okay, it mimics understanding, it doesn't understand the text, but offers few things more, and that's why it makes it so powerful. So first, it allows human-like conversations between human and machine, right? Then, extremely important small detail, right? Which maybe we consider it as kind of that it's obvious, but it's far from obvious. It keeps the context of conversation, right? It understands if the conversation is longer, this machinery actually knows what we discussed with the machine, I don't know, 10 minutes or 1 hour ago, right? It has capability to summarize content. It has some capabilities of reasoning, not yet too much, but a little bit, yes. And before 2000, so this is only a year and a half ago, really, this was really science fiction for us. So we didn't believe, so basically, me and my colleagues, right, we didn't believe that we will see something like ChatGPT in our lifetimes. And this happened, and it was really serious revolution, right? Okay, now, since you are teachers, right, or mostly teachers, what can we do? Let's say if we have a piece of text. Here we have, on the left side, we have a Wikipedia page of Slovenia. okay, what can we do with this piece of text? Imagine that this would be a textbook on history, or it can be textbook on geography and so on, any kind of text, right? Some very obvious activities are summarizing text. Okay, if we have lots of text, we would squeeze it just to get the gist, right, of this text. Fine. Opposite from summarization is expanding, right? So sometimes we have just a couple of notes, few ideas, and we would like to make a longer text out of it, right? We can ask ChatGPT, okay, make a longer essay or longer text out of it. We can graphically draw the text, right? So we can make a mind map out of it. We can create an exam out of it. If you're a teacher, you would want to make an exam, you can make an exam, let's say, out of a textbook now in 1 minute. Right? You can explain or justify certain facts, the context, right? You can connect bits and pieces from the text in a causal way, right? What influenced what? You can translate this. Okay, translation was already before with Google Translate, but now it's kind of integrated. You can correct the content, or you can make different styles, right, as well, and many other things, right? Fine. Maybe I don't have probably too much time anymore, but still, if I show you just maybe some of these simple examples, right? Okay, I will close this neural network now, and so I showed you this page of Slovenia, Wikipedia page of Slovenia. It has few tens of pages, really, of text. Fine. Now I will drop it in ChatGPT. So I prepared, this is the text, right, which I took from Wikipedia. I will make the complete run through. You can just replicate what I'm doing now with a textbook or with any piece of text, and it will work. Now I create a new session in ChatGPT. Fine. And I say, okay, this is our summarize in one sentence. Fine. And I just copied the full article, so these tens of pages, into ChatGPT. And ChatGPT will summarize the whole long tens of pages into one article. Fine. Now, what we can do, let's say, maybe we can make a mind map out of this document. Say, create a mind map of the article where notes are entities and links are relations. Okay, we will save it in some kind of format. Use grab with formats, code, make exceptions on links. Sometimes it doesn't. We wait for a few seconds, right? And we will get representation, mind map of this text, kind of a little bit high level, right? A little bit high level, but it will work out, right? Let me just open, yeah. So let's wait just a little bit more. So these are connections of the mind map out of this document, which probably ChatGPT didn't see before, right? We copied this here, and we have a mind map of the article. Not sure why it's, aha, so this would be a simple mind map. We can, in principle, make it bigger or smaller and so on, right? Or nicer, colorful, and so on. Okay, maybe just as a simple example, right? Before we continue with the last few slides. Let's say here's a section on Wikipedia page, is a section on Slovenian Spring, Democracy and Independence. Fine. copy this. We say, okay, fine. Now we say, okay, create a description of the section for 5-year-old kids, right? You press a button and we would get a very simple explanation of how Slovenia got independence, right? So this was impossible before, right? So this is, let's not read, but you see it's kind of simple, friendly text which is suitable for small kids. But at the same time, we can say also make a speech of the section suitable for a politician. Now, with this simple command, somehow we would get full speech, right? And I guess you would expect that speeches of our politicians, including the ministers, are written these days in this way. Not much more. If you don't believe me, I cannot convince you right now, but better to believe me. Now, just the last example before we continue, right? Okay, so this is a speech. Okay, let's finish this. But you see, it's a nice little speech on which one could do. Now we can say, okay, create. Just a second. Okay. Create an exam. Exam based on the article. Create an exam with multiple choice questions. Annotate correct answer and justify why it is correct. Now it stopped writing the speech. Okay, now we will get exam. Question number 1, what type of government does Slovenia have? Presidential, monarchy, unitary, federal. Correct answer is C. And justifications like this. Question number 2, and so on, right? You see, the effort to make an exam was really small, plus we get justification. Okay, I will stop here, just not to. So here I could serve you tons of examples like this, but let's now just to finalize. These examples we saw before, maybe just last couple of thoughts. So how much can we trust ChatGPT? Mostly we can trust, right? ChatGPT or similar tools. Mostly we can trust, but we need to be careful and critical to the output which we get out of the systems. Why? Because the way how the system works, it's prone towards errors. So we cannot avoid occasional errors. We call it hallucinations, right? We cannot totally get rid of them, but we can just minimize them. So this is one honest statement about these tools. But mostly things work pretty well, right? So as mentioned before, the key property likely is this out-of-box thinking or opportunity of out-of-box thinking if we use tools like this. So we can extend our capabilities way more as compared to maybe 2 years ago, right? Why? Because the scale of information which ChatGPT or these kind of tools have is so big that we cannot compete really, right? And just a summary is the last thing. So there's no way back. ChatGPT won't go anywhere, right? So it will stay. It will get bigger, more smarter, and our chance is only to integrate tools like this in our lives. So my mother is 87 years old, and she's asking me, install me this ChatGPT because I want to use it, because everybody talks about it and I want to benefit out of it, right? So what should I say? If it's good enough for my mother, then likely probably also other people would benefit out of it. Right? We need to maintain critical thought. Don't forget about this. Sometimes, person gets lazy and you're not critical towards these outputs. It's better to be critical still, right? And also in the future. And as a teachers, right? Not sure if you use this expression, but we use it in AI a lot, right? So model of the world, right? The task of you teachers, right, is to create a model of the world into students' heads. And AI can help a lot, but cannot replace you, I think. But you as teachers, you need to embrace AI and all these new tools. I mean, the development is fast. Just this last 2 weeks happened so much, or for me, this last 3 days here in Vienna in this conference, I learned so much new stuff. And expect that this development will continue. So next week, I think there are a couple of big announcements from big companies. So let's say end of next week, you will have more things to check. Okay, so much. I think I was way too long, as always, right? I guess we'll discuss a little bit later at the panel. Thanks.
Thank you, Marco, for your presentation. You will have the opportunity to ask Marco questions later on. I think we should continue with our second presenter, Dr. Andrei Brodnik. He is a professor at University of Primorska and University of Ljubljana, among many other areas. His research interests also focus on the teaching of computation and informatics. And during his career, he has received many awards, including the award for outstanding achievement in higher education of the Republic of Slovenia. And just last year, he was awarded the prestigious Michi Turing Award for his lifetime achievements in computer and information science. So, please.
Technology wins, as much as we can control it, right? Good afternoon to everybody on the late Friday afternoon. Everybody is looking forward to go home, right? Friday nights, this is something really important for the, what's wrong? Oh yeah, Friday nights are important for everybody, also for the private life, right? So I'll try to be as short as possible. And moreover, although I would like to discuss about the things which were brought up by Marco, I will not discuss about them because I would like to follow my own agenda, and then in the round table we might want to discuss the whole thing. The point about the whole thing, here we go. It's this thing here. Whatever we are doing is what's done already before, somehow, in some other form, some other way. And I would like to show that this history, who is a big teacher, well, almost as big as love, is also important for our lives achievements, right? Now, I never went to the classical gymnasium. I like Latin very much, so next thing which I'd like to talk about is what we are talking about, right? And also, Laura already presented education and AI combination. I found this interesting book, and I would really recommend you to go through it. And also, it will be it was very inspiring for me, you know, because important thing. Oh, by the way, you can make the pictures, you can make photos, whatever. At the end, there is a QR code for a real location where you can download the slides from. Okay, so the whole idea about AI is, which I would like to pursue in this talk, is mostly that AI is, well, yet another technology which appeared. It's different than previous technologies, but it is technology which humans are trying to use for their life and to make their life easier. Now, if you're looking to this one, I just took one short quote from the introduction, and it says that AI might, where is this might? Important, disturbing contribution to the debate on AI, how many might affect teachers and students, how do they engage in education. And that's the important thing. The education stays there, whatever we are talking about, AI is just technology which helps in education. And we have to also think about it this way, and also think about the technology as being fostering the education process itself. What is actually the title of this conference anyway? But the whole thing has a very big underlying important issue, subject to the teacher's knowledge. If the teacher is not knowledgeable enough, right, then this technology doesn't help him. I mean, you can imagine that if you don't know how to switch on the overhead projector 30 years ago back, right, you couldn't use it for your education, but it was quite an important thing. So what is behind the whole thing? What is this knowledge which we need to have, or which is actually driving the whole technology issue? I like this proceedings from Digital Humanism. It's a very nice collection of the papers of the conference, which was in Vienna back in 2022. And it was talking about the technology versus humanities. And I think this is a very important issue, because technology is here just for the humans, not vice versa. And to understand this, I think that's quite kind of interesting thing. And let me do it this way, okay? Because I can't see that far. Because what is important thing is here, like this one, this is a very important notion which was came up with in the 20th this conference. Namely, it was the first time in the history of humankind that we got an engine, machine, which didn't help us only in the physical work, but also in the mental, intellectual work. And this is happening since mid-20th century, when the first computers appeared. And this is kind of a new way of thinking about the artifacts produced by the humans. Humans were producing machines and engines before, and they were used for, I don't know, plowing, for driving, whatever. But this time, this thing is actually helping to do the intellectual work. Again, the same subject to our knowledge and skills. The machine can do the intellectual work for us, or can help us to do it, but it's everything. It depends on our knowledge about the use of this machine. ChatGPT, as Marco was describing, can do the work, but we have to know how to do it. So the next few questions will look like out of scope, but still, let me try to go through this thing. Let's pretend that we are back in, our values are back to like 60 years in 1960s, okay? So one of the things which engine is around us are cars, and locomotives, and so on. So I would like to ask you the following question. Who had physics as a subject in a primary school? Can you raise the hands? More or less everybody, right? You didn't have. It was science, yes. In UK system, it's science. It's part of science, yes, of course. Who had the physics in the high school? Right, great. Why do we have this physics? Who studied physics at the college? Well, those who went to the social sciences and humanities usually not, but the rest, yes. So who has never come across any subject of physics? No raised hand, okay? Is there one hand raised? No? So what is physics? Why is physics so important? Why did everybody learn physics in his or her lifetime? Somebody realized that this is kind of the thing which kind of stands behind the something what is important to have, okay? Don't forget we are talking about history as great teacher of our life. So let's try to do something. James Watt, okay? Everybody heard about James Watt? Okay. Have you heard of him? Yes, okay. What important did he do? Did we learn something about that? You remember what he did? He invented something what is called a steam engine, right? And do you know how does it work, the steam engine? At least in principle? Yeah, kind of. Where did we learn this? In physics, right? What about this guy? Have you heard of him? Yeah. What did important he do? Well, it's electrical engine. In fact, he invented something what is kind of important thing, right? And how does this engine work? Do we have an idea in principle at least? Kind of yes, right? The problem is that we heard about these things because we believe the same way what Isaac Newton said, like 500 years later after Bernard of Chartres, that he invented the new things because he was standing on the shoulders of the giants. And we are learning from the history for our future life. Okay? Now let's proceed with our survey. Did anybody hear about this guy? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What important did he do? You're out of scope. So most of the people never heard about the computer architecture. But do you understand, do we know that this machine which is here, yes, this one here, all of them are looking the same, and they look the same way as John von Neumann actually in 40s back, that's like 70 years ago, coined the architecture. But we never heard of him. Do we know how does this thing work? That's kind of the more the problem. What about this guy? He was on one of the slides today already, right, Laura? Exactly. Yes, he got Turing's Award in '71 for the chess game for the AI solution. Well, he had also some other problems with the society, but that's it. Okay, now do we know how does it work? Well, if we never heard of him, we can't also know how does it work, right? Let's proceed. What about this one? Heard of him? Well, there's one hand raised, but she's completely out of scope because she studied computing. Anybody else heard of it? Oh, you heard of him. What? You heard of him? So, what important did he do? Huh? Yes, but what did he do? Internet. He is father of internet. Yes, exactly. He got Turing's Award from 2004. But we never heard of him. How come? And this is a society which we are living in. Internet is everywhere. Well, the next question is how does it work? I will skip this one. What about Martin Hellman? Mayonnaise, right? Well, what important did he do? Mayonnaise, right? Actually, he did something completely different. He also got the Turing Award 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and he invented the certificates. Actually, due to him and his work, we can do internet banking. Never heard of him, right? Strange enough, but we are all doing internet banking. How do we do this? Okay, so what about the computing in primary school? Who had the computing in primary school? 1, 2, 3, 4 hands, okay? Who had in computing in high school? Slightly more, right? College? You see, important thing is, which I would like to emphasize, is that the number of hands raised in the college level is much higher than the primary and secondary school. Why? Because everybody who is nowadays doing whatever he is doing needs computing, needs to know how to use the digital technology. So what is computing? This is the statement by our Ministry of Digital, what's called transformation, digital, whatever, something ministry. And she basically said that, no, we don't need the computing in the schools. Why do we don't need it? Well, because we learn about the electricity, but we don't have electrical engineering as a subject in our primary schools. Okay, that's fair enough. But let's look from the different perspective. Electrical engineering we don't have in a primary school, but we do have physics, don't we? We raised all the hands. We did all the gym with the physics, right? So on the other hand, we don't need to have digital technology as such, but we would need to have something to learn how this technology works, because otherwise we can't explore it and use it as much as we can. And don't forget, digital technology or computers are connected with the computer science as much as it is astronomy to the telescopes. Telescope is an engine used in astronomy, but it's not astronomy. Now, talking about the computers as part of the computing, yes, it is used for this, but not really for that. Now, we came to a certain point that we understand that we need to have some kind of a knowledge or skills which will help us to do the work in 21st century. Let's look at from different perspective. We are still at a statement about the history of being a good teacher, right? This is from Michael Manske paper on Slovenia in 1991. In 1991, Slovenia represented approximately 1/13 of the population and generated a good third of export from former Yugoslavia. Right? History is a teacher, right? How does it work? Well, if we are looking at the picture of the industrialization of former Yugoslavia, it's patchwork of different areas, but nothing really special. But another picture is astonishing. This one here, it's about the literacy. And this is back in 31. Why the heck was literacy so high in this green part? I mean, Austro-Hungarian Empire was also part. Croatia, northern Serbia, everything was part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. But the literacy there was pretty low. Now kicks in the history. This is Europe in 1789, and where is this? This is Austro-Hungarian Empire, and this part here, which is called Silesia, used to be part of Austro-Hungarian Empire, but it was taken by whom? By Prussians. Why? Because Maria Theresa came to the power after dying of his father, and he was not strong enough to resist the neighboring countries. So what did she do? Well, she started to do reforms, and one of the first reforms has a 250 years anniversary today. It's called the education reform. And it was just in Austria, well, this is in German written, whatever it's written, it's just the Austrian part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which now explains why the literacy range in this part, which is part of Austria, was higher than the rest of the country. Okay? So how did reform work? Well, the reform work, this is again yet thing which we can learn from. In Article 3 of the reform, this is from the Slovenski Čas paper in 26th of March, and the Article 3 actually leveled all the knowledge in the former, in that part of the kingdom. Why? Because there was a requirement not to make any divide between the parts of the Austrian Empire. And the second part was how the curriculum was consisted. It consisted of 4 parts. First one was religious education. Okay. The second part was reading, writing, and arithmetic. This is kind of the basic stuff which you have to learn. And then the third part was preparation for profession and for education. And we had 2 kinds of the schools. One kind of the school was just required to have these 2 parts, and the rest was this part. So, what about that? Arithmetic, reading, writing, and arithmetic. This is the second part. This is kind of the basic knowledge that everybody has to have to survive in the 18th century. 3 R's get C for computing. Wow, this is something somebody wrote like in 2020, right? Or something like this. No, it was written back in 82. New York Times in 82 said, we need C for computing. And this is something what brings us to the expression of computational thinking, which I guess Irina will be talking more about. The computational thinking, like Laura said before, AI has the origins before also computational thinking. It has origin in 80s, in 90s, and it was brought back in 2006, and this is actually the way that humans should think that they can be that they can talk to the machine, put it this way. And we really need to learn how to talk to the machine because machine is stupid. Whatever we do, we need to talk with her about these things, okay? Now, the second part is the preparation for profession. And actually, Laura already mentioned in UK, we have just a science. And science consists of physics, chemistry, and biology. Now, the science is actually expanded by computing. And computing is becoming something what used to be physics in the 20th century. It's physics of the 21st century. And we need this education. Why? Because otherwise we are not able to use the digital technology which is occurring anywhere in the world. Just note, everybody, not IT specialists, not computing specialists, everybody needs this knowledge. Just for the sake of example, let me give you, let's look at the Nobel Prize winners in 2022. The first one is for the physics. Surprise, it's pioneering quantum information to science. Wow. Nothing to do, well, use of the physics in quantum computing. The second one is for chemistry. It's something on a click chemistry. Click chemistry, very simply said, is first compute everything in silico and then start to do the thing in vitro because it's cheaper, faster, and much more efficient. Can you do it without this knowledge of the computing? No, you can't. And that's the reason why everybody raised a hand in having computer science or informatics at the college. And now the problem is, which we will come up later, is the third is about the peace. And the peace is actually tripartite from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. And actually what they did, they created a map recording the events of the horrible war. And again, it's just information technology. So what is at stake? it's a very crucial thing at stake. The question is, shall we be creators or consumers of digital technology? Consumers basically means just use it. Creators try to understand and make critical thinking about it. Understanding or just following? Here it is, use it. Or understand and then make your own decision to use it or not. Ultimately, we are asking on which side of digital divide do we want to be? On the one which just uses the technology, or on the one which creates technology and uses it with a deep thought about the thing. So the question is the well-being of our children, and this is where the whole thing kicks in. In 2013, ITSILS made a very interesting research, and they were asking students of grade 8 to use the computers for solving the problems, whatever they are. And it turns out that 4% of Polish children were able to solve the most difficult problems, but Slovenian just 0.4. Why the heck? The reason is that Polish students have something what is called informatics from the first grade on the primary school, and our kids have no association with the computing technology at all. And this basically concludes the talk. Here is the promised QR code. And don't forget about this thing, what Woodrow Wilson said. But it is our duty for our children to do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Dr. Andrej Brodnik for this wonderful presentation. Our third and final presenter is Dr. Irina Nančovska-Šerbec. She's a lecturer at the Faculty of Education at the University of Ljubljana, where she teaches, among other subjects, information and communication technology in education, as well as applied artificial intelligence in education. She is an expert in the area where artificial intelligence and education intersect, and I am delighted that today she will give us a short lecture on teachers' preparation for a digital future.
Can we move the computer because I also have glasses? Hello, thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, you will struggle with my English because I have predecessors which were very good in English. And also, I must say that I enjoy very much in the Andres and Marcos and Laura's talk. So my talk is somehow proof of Andres' statement that teachers must have knowledge to teach artificial intelligence, and also I will have many topics in intersection with others. I will start with this: the desire to get something without effort is the real problem, especially in the time of generative artificial intelligence, and especially for us, teachers. When I was invited to introduce how we prepare the teachers for digital age, I have many different thoughts, and maybe one of the main questions was, what should students know about the digital world? Still, I think that a computer is a machine, and it is performing all the time the instruction. So one of the most important things is to teach a basic understanding how the computer works. At a minimal standard, I will use the terminology of teachers, is what do we think that artificial intelligence is? No matter what we think about it, it is very important that it is still learning from existing data, huge amounts of data, but it is still learning from data. And it also reflects all the complexity and contradictions of the world in which we live. But maybe something which is very important is the following thing. If we can't agree on what is right and what is wrong, how will the machine do the things right? So that's why we need education. I will start with the educational models which we used to educate our teachers for digital age. I think that you know both models, DIC-COMP and DIC-COMP-EDU. And also I will talk what artificial intelligence is and what should our teachers know about artificial intelligence. And I will end with generative artificial intelligence and education.
Does humanity know what it's doing? No. I think we're moving into a period when, for the first time ever, we may have things more intelligent than us. You believe they can understand. Yes. You believe they are intelligent.
Do you know who these guys? No? I am just mimicking Andrei. He is Geoffrey Hinton. He is the godfather of artificial intelligence, and he got Turing Award many years ago together with Benjoy and LeCroy. But this video is very provocative because he's talking for the first time that we have something which is more intelligent, which will be more intelligent than people. But what is intelligence? Maybe it is not so dangerous, but I think that it is also he is a very important man and he could talk in this way. So we are developing digital competencies through different subjects at Faculty of Education. We have, for example, ICT in education, we have didactics for ICT, and we also have artificial intelligence use in education and stuff like this. We use this framework. I think that you know this. This is the COMP, and this is common model for all citizens. And we also use for developing teachers' skills and knowledge, this model, which is called DIC-COMP-EDU. These models are very old, but we are still talking about skills, how to use digital world. So we have, to empower teachers to teach in digital technology, we use this model because it is also related to educators' professional competencies, which means that teachers found ways how to continue with lifelong learning. At the same time, teachers we teach teachers how to make digital resources, how to make assessments, how to empower learning, and etc., etc. At the same time, we develop transversal skills how to teach in the digital world. We also use modern approaches like collaborative learning, problem solving, flipped learning, project-based learning. I think that we are mainly teachers. Please raise your hands if you're a teacher here. Yes, the majority are teachers. So I think that you know what I'm talking about. So at our faculty, we created ecosystem which is about how to empower all the participants in the system, and this is grounded in the Digital Education Action Plan. And as I told you, we have many subjects about ICT in education. We also have we also have support at the university level, but this is everything about the use of technology. I think that it is not important to start to teach how to use artificial intelligence, because with this, our students will not get knowledge about computer-aided design. Mainly, maybe they will get some minimal standards and knowledge about thinking critically, thinking systematically, and maybe we need something which is more deepened. This is maybe the new subject which is simply computer science. And this solution could be maybe better solution for our society, because computer science teachers could introduce the computer science in simple, effective way for all the people. But what is very important in the age of generative artificial intelligence? All the time we are generating prompts. How to generate prompts? How to make the generative artificial intelligence effective? How to get answers? What we need is computational thinking steps. First, we must know how to define the problem. And after that, we get many useful solutions. But the understanding of algorithm, which will be produced by a solution, must be evaluated through critical thinking. So the last step is the power of generalization. That's why I think that we must teach teachers how to understand what is generating artificial intelligence. So I will continue with what artificial intelligence is. You can see that we are repeating the same content again and again, so I can skip. I think that for me, because I'm teaching mainly computer science teachers, is that artificial intelligence is part of computer science. We mentioned Turing, which is very important man from this field, and he's well known from his Turing tests, which is also called imitation game. Do you know what is Turing test? So please raise your hand if you know. More than half, so thank you. I can skip. Do you think that GPT is passing the Turing test? Please raise your hand if you think that GPT is passing the test. Yes. I read a paper maybe 2 days ago that teachers think that can distinguish between AI-generated text and human-generated, and they were almost certain that they know what is generated. Unfortunately, it was not true. So, other very important thing, which is very popular maybe in last half year, is the Turing idea of rational agent. Rational agent is a program which is communicated with an environment, and he is making a lot of actions. Copilot, for example, is one of them, and also GPT has many agents. What is important is that this agent has knowledge. How to access the knowledge base is the key issue, and how this knowledge is built. So I will continue with convolutional neural network from 2010. 12. I think that I could skip the importance of this because predecessors did this. But for me, it is very interesting to try to explain how this works. Marco demonstrated the neural network. Now I will try to do the same thing, but for lay people. So we have here convolutional neural network. And instead of dots, we have here bird. And this convolutional network could classify things almost like human, even better. So what is doing this work? The network is mimicking the human brain, and somehow it is making choices of features, but the way of classification is much more like we do, like intuition. So it is very similar, like we have parents and child, and these parents are teaching their child what is dog, for example. So they are showing cases, this is dog, this is not dog, and after some time the child could know what is dog. It is the same. Here we have other examples of image recognition. What is generative machine learning? Machine learning to make prediction. It is very popular since 2010. And this is a program which is generating, I think that Marco said the same, creating text, images, audio, videos, and stuff like this. But here I can mention one very provocative example again. It happened in 2016. Microsoft created chat agent called Tay. And she, I can say she because they decided to be she, generated in 16 hours 96,000 tweets. But they decided to stop this agent because she became racist. Do you know why? Because she was trying to get as like as it is possible. Other interesting but very bright part of generative artificial intelligence is the use for the image of the black hole in 2019. So large language models are still neural networks. They have simple structure, but why they are so strong? Because they're working on very, very big amounts of data. They're using billions of, they have billions of simple units, and they can make many queries at the same time. But this generative artificial intelligence is not used only in ChatGPT. It is also used in Google Translate and also in DeepL. Oops, sorry. ChatGPT, I think that you know you use this chat model. Has, as my predecessor said, the knowledge of everything which was digitalized. So Marco talked about this. But still, large language model absorb the biases of the human creators. But still, large language model blindly propagate information without knowing what is true. But still, large language model cannot consider the truth from any point of view because they cannot feel, they don't have sense. We have 3 levels of artificial intelligence. GPT is weak artificial intelligence, which is capable of solving very special problems. But strong artificial intelligence will be capable of understanding. We are not so close to this. And super artificial intelligence will be superior. Maybe use So Hinton, and he was talking about this kind of artificial intelligence. But at the same time, the very successful educators like Partovi, who is the author of Code Oracle, and Khan, found the generative artificial intelligence very useful. So they said that they can use artificial intelligence in process efficiencies, in content generation, personalized learning, and interactive activities and stuff like this. Also, how we educate our teachers. We educate them by displaying, by practicing. So teaching about only how to use, in this case, will not be enough. So teachers generate many classroom materials. They evaluate the feedbacks of their students. Also, they can can tell their students how to use artificial intelligence in their time. But at the same time, tools will change and maybe artificial intelligence will become more smart. Still, we will have some proper, suitable use and some inappropriate use. As, for example, artificial intelligence could be used as a generator of ideas, but authorship should be done by the person which is generating information. Also, artificial intelligence could be used for lectures preparation, for making tests, as Marco demonstrated. At the same time, ChatGPT could check the complexity of the question, the complexity, the difficulty of the homework. But one inappropriate use is to verify the source of the text. I think that you notice already that GPT is hallucinating. What is really important to concern when we're using artificial intelligence? By this time, we have very poor understanding and lack of transparency about how artificial intelligence really works. I think that science also don't have all the answers about this. And we should know that our brain is also working in some way, and the top scientists don't know anything about it. Also, there is a tendency to make mistakes and fabrications. I think that we mentioned many times that large language models make mistakes because they don't understand the text. They also include some misleading data in their conclusions. Again, maybe more important for a prospective teacher is to understand the misuse of intellectual property. So I think that we should train our teachers to make distinction between the situations in which they can allow to use generative and artificial intelligence and situation in which it is not proper. Large language models learn from original texts. These texts really belong to humanity, and it is very difficult to make the proper copyright for these materials. At the same time, artificial intelligence is using workers to produce data. For example, in the time when we are asking GPT, we are giving the GPT information. and we are giving data. Also, it is important to stress that the whole market will change, okay? So we need new professions and new way of thinking. Maybe the most important for generative artificial intelligence is to understand these topics, that technology didn't necessarily improve the education, that the artificial intelligence which is generating is sometimes hallucinating. Sometimes we have atrophy of critical thinking. And sometimes teachers are thinking in too much materials. And from this point of view, it is very, very difficult to distinguish which materials are good and which are not so good. We also have distractions of attention. Attention is all you lack, because by using artificial intelligence, we can do things in 0 minutes. We also have biases. We also have information bubbles. We also have hyper-personalization, which means that sometimes without artificial intelligence, we can find more interesting solutions of the same situation. Maybe the most important is the dehumanization, that schools that employ only AI tutors may overlook the teacher's care and the teacher's role in education. Maybe I will finish with this. I was thinking about what will happen next. Maybe it is very difficult to make prediction for many years ago. But I think that now we have a lot of AI agents which could be used for solving problems. But how could we use with this plenty of technology? What our children need is what Andrei said, computational thinking, to use this technology in proper way. Other important thing is that we already have a lot of AI-assisted interfaces. But still, I stay on a positive part. I think that AI allows and is creating situation for democratization of knowledge, which means that knowledge is now available for everybody. At the same time, AI offers us a lot of possibilities for creativity, for making interesting questions, and for personal human experience. Thank you for attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Let me invite all the speakers up on the stage. Is Marco with us? I hope that Marco is still with us. So let us finally start with the round table. I want to keep as much time for the audience to ask questions, since there are quite a lot of teachers here today, and perhaps you have questions that this is a great opportunity to get the answers for those questions. And I have to say that I wanted to start this round table with the question, what is AI? But I won't do it, since we don't have enough time, perhaps. Perhaps we can get back to the question if need be. So to get right to it, and this question is not for any one of you particularly, but rather for all of you, to get as concrete as possible right away. So, for example, you all mentioned there are many intersections between AI and education. So, for example, Marco talked about how teachers can use AI in their daily job. Dr. Brodnik addressed why it's important to have computing or information in curricula for students, and Dr. Nanchowska, you've mentioned why digital education for teachers is, for example, important, and Laura's presentation was perhaps the most broad in the sense it addressed the whole education system. So there are many intersections, but let's start with the first one. So, as concretely as possible, let's say I'm a teacher, and I'm very much interested in using AI tools in my daily teaching process. My question to all of you is, how should I go about it? So you might answer in regards to where could I get knowledge on how to use these types of tools, or perhaps even where can I find the tools that I will be able to use, and so on. So I want to keep it as broad as possible. Where should I start?
If you are a complete beginner, there are two approaches. You can either start with a general purpose large language model like ChatGPT or one of the equivalents and explore, or you can go and use a tool specifically for teachers which is designed to provide support and scaffolding in using these tools. Something like magicschool.ai, for example, which has lots of pre-prepared prompts and starting points, which helps build confidence with what can be done. So as an example, you can put a YouTube video link in. It will create for you a set of multiple choice questions, comprehension questions, on the video's transcript and give you an answer key in 10 seconds. It's a beautiful way to then assess your students' understanding of the video that they have watched.
Well, maybe if I respond to this, right? So what Laura said, it's totally correct, right? So I'm more like on the side of so if a teacher is technical enough, right? So then I would recommend to use some of the general purpose tools. So this usually would mean today the ChatGPT or possibly that is a few other candidates, Gemini or Anthropic. They're basically 3-4 which one could use maybe in a couple of years, but different, right? And also develop the skills of prompting. Prompting is nothing else as asking smart questions, nothing else, right? And this is not something which people shouldn't know, right? So it's so basic skill. And if teacher knows this or has the skill of prompting, then also can transfer this know-how to students as well, which I think it's very useful. As Andrei was mentioning before, and Irena as well, right? So in old times, computer science or programming or computing education was about programming, about digital stuff and so on. Nowadays, in many ways, this can be prompting or capability to operate with these AI tools. Why they got so popular? Because it's so simple, right? It's so simple that I would recommend to teachers just to use this. That's why I gave also this example with my mother, right? She's 87. So if she can do it, I believe also teachers of 30, 40, 50 years can do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Marco. I was going to add to your thoughts, Marco, if it's okay, about teaching teachers to write effective prompts. Teachers are excellent communicators for the most part. Like, this is not something that we find difficult because we're so good at breaking down ideas. But when I'm training my colleagues on how to write effective prompts, I give them a structure to use to start with. And we use the acronym SCRIPT because it just helps remember the different elements. So first, be specific with what you want. Do you specify the details? Then C, for context. Give the GPT some context about what domain of expertise you're working in. After that, we need R. R, I've forgotten what my R is. I'll come back to it in a second. I is iterate. So you expect to go through it a number of different times. Reasoning could well be reasoning. P is parameters. So, for example, if you want bullet points, you want a grid, you want a mind map, you want paragraphs, you want 100 words. You say what you want. And then T is tone. So you can say whether you want academic tone, friendly, optimistic, procedural. You can give it all of those different instructions. I'll remember my R in a minute. But essentially, you give it those different approaches in your prompting, and you will get responses that are going to start feeling like the right kind of thing. Oh, it'll come back to me.
Yes, this, thank you for this. Prompt definition is very important to teach the prospective teachers. For example, we are talking again about problem definition, but also you can do something like Marco did. You can use this literature, you can use just these sources to generate materials. This is a little bit safer, not to make so much hallucinations. So this was my point.
So I'm the last one here, right? I would go back to the Irina's slide on decomp edu, if you remember. Decomp edu actually is not that, it's quite well thought through structure. It consists of 3 parts. The first part is governance of the educational process. The second one is the educational process itself. And the third one is specific knowledge for the students, pupils. Now, the question which you posed, right? It depends the answer on it from which point of view we are looking at. If we are looking from the point of view of the using the technology, which is governance of the whole thing, right? Your personal development, then one would go around to look for different tools, like going around to the shop and find a new pasta, if you wish, to make a new very good bolognese, whatever. I am not in this business, obviously. Anyway, so this is to use of the technology itself. However, this use of technology itself should not be bluntly pushed into the class. I think the first thing which is to be answered for the class use of the thing is, what do I want to achieve with this? What am I teaching here? What kind of a transfer of knowledge am I doing? And if I'm doing the transfer of knowledge, which would be better done using AI, okay. But just to push it in every kind of a teaching process or any kind of a transfer of knowledge is not really a good idea. So the answer to your question is depends what you're asking actually about.
That's a great way to get into the second question, since I totally agree. One should not use AI for the sake of using AI, but rather for a very specific purpose. So one criteria of whether or not AI is used in an appropriate manner could be, do you know what you're using it for? Are there any other, perhaps at least relatively straightforward criteria one could use to assess whether or not the use of AI is the way it should be?
I have one of these, if I may. Is there anybody with whom your relationship will be damaged by the use of AI in the task? Damaged or undermined? And if the relationship is damaged or undermined by the discovery of AI being used, it's not the right choice.
This is exactly goes back. You have to understand why are you using technology. And there is another aspect of using of technology. Everybody is familiar with LMS, learning management systems, right? Learning management systems are a very beautiful thing, but they have to be used with, how to say it, with some common sense, right? and not pushing the LMS just straightforward through. Because at the end of the day, you may make more damage. Like, for example, I'll just put my slides in LMS and they will be available. Well, this is not really a great idea of using the technology for something what you already do some other way. So you have to use the technology in such a way that the learner benefits from its use, not just a replacement for some old thing.
If I may, quick answer. I think this answer of Nora, right? When nobody's hurt. I mean, but this nobody includes the person himself as well, right? So certainly cheating sometimes can be just a shortcut to accomplish a task, which maybe it's fine, right? But if the level of using AI prevents you actually to be competent on the longer term, then for the tasks at least which you can envision that it may appear in the future, then certainly AI would hurt you. Imagine now that somebody is a doctor, right, and would stop really practicing the healing the patients, right, and would just use ChatGPT, and maybe mostly it would even kind of be successful, but once is enough, right? The cost of mistake often determines should you use, well, any kind of tool, not just AI or not, right? And there are a couple of more things, but I would go in this line with kind of simple criteria.
I think that I experienced some interesting situations about how to trust the output of artificial intelligence. I've got the master thesis from a student which looks like it was generated by artificial intelligence, but I didn't have any way to check this. Some sentences were somehow without deeper meaning. But I didn't find a way how to communicate this. So it is a very strange situation, I think, for all teachers. Other situation is because I'm teaching introductory programming, and maybe 3 years ago it was very simple to check the basic knowledge concepts about introductory programming. And we asked just for 2 hours our students to give us the solutions online by using systems like Andrei said. But now I should make assessment in person without this online learning. This is affecting the way I'm working with artificial intelligence, because I know that these simple tasks could be generated. I also got many solutions generated by complex, in complex way with generators and comprehension lists and stuff like this for introductory programming. So was this not real? So how can I communicate this with my students?
I think this is an excellent situation to go back to the history and the question ourselves, why do we teach? Why do students want to learn? Now, if this is the prime question, that the student learns something, then there is no issue of cheating. Because if he or she can solve the task, whatever means. So from that perspective, I like that much open book exams. If he or she, because he or she will be in their lifetime also using whatever resources will be available, right? So the only thing which we can think about is integrity of the person. And of course, this doesn't solve all the cheaters, but at least it does solve the issue of the majority on those which we would care mostly about. And that's one part of the story. Now, the second part of the story, so the questions which we are asking, again, it's similar as I was saying before, will probably be changed. They will not be, write a program which draws picture of the tree on the screen. Come on, everybody can copy this from somewhere. But the question might be, this is the program which should do this. What's wrong with it? Now, it's again the same thing. You understand what's going on. And this is your objective as a teacher. The learner understands, but she or he has to show his knowledge, her knowledge, in a different way. I like ChatGPT. Well, actually, I'm using the other guy. What's his name? Gemini, right? All my exams go to the Gemini before they go to the class. Gemini is fine, solves like 60% of the questions, which is good. This is that much which lexicographical knowledge I want them to collect. But the last part, which requires some kind of a understanding, which I really don't understand how the computer program AI understands something, it's the thing which humans should, of course, it will be in the future, it will be also changed, machine will help students to understand all of the things, but currently this is the thing which I think should be in assessment used or the targeted, because this way that students will learn something, right? And that's exactly what we are trying to achieve. Oh, by the way, one more thing. Fake. Deep fake. Yes, deep fake. We have a project in the University of Primorska about introducing the informatics in the kindergarten and first 3 years of the primary school. And one of the topics is also about the cybersecurity. And cybersecurity involves this deep fake and this kind of trust stuff. And I was very eager to introduce different ways and measures how to fight this. But then the teacher came to me, she's an expert in preschool education. She said, no, you can't do this because the kids at that age are actually learning to trust. And you cannot teach them not to trust because this is their education, this is how they are developing. So AI is also have to understand that, or when not AI doesn't understand anything in that sense. The teacher has to understand what and who is in front of him or her. And use the technology appropriately. Sorry, that was just what to say.
Okay, let me give the opportunity to audience to ask the question before we run out of time, and I will be sorry. You can perhaps raise hand and Marco will find you. If there are no questions, please go ahead.
Hello. This might be a challenge for the round table, so you're welcome to try and give an answer. During the lectures, you mentioned that the component of critical thinking and how educators, if I recall correctly, cannot check if the student did it or ChatGPT did it. I would disagree with that vehemently because if educator cannot distinguish between a student and a ChatGPT, then it was obviously ChatGPT. No?
I disagree. May I?
You may.
Thank you. I don't think it's as simple as that. First of all, we need to have deep empathy for students in this situation. For the first time in many situations, students are facing the near constant accusation or suspicion of cheating, of being cheats, and they are angry. And it's not fair. So that's the first thing. Like, you do excellent work, the first thing that happens is somebody accuses you of cheating. Why would you bother? That's the first problem. The second problem is that there is not a single AI detection tool or platform that works effectively. They would love to take our money. They would love to take our money, but they don't work reliably. What does work is a very simple thing that is free to all teachers. It's called questions. So the thing to do when faced with work that you're not sure is talk to the student about it. Have the conversation. It's very clear. Tell me about paragraph 2. This argument that you made, right? Yes, it's time consuming, absolutely, but the process has to change. We have to think differently about assessment. Either you make everything open book and you look at outcome, or you make the process invisible and you have to make it possible to look into that. Finally, every student who is writing in a language that is not their own language is more likely to be accused of using AI platforms just because they're using reference materials or they're writing outside of their mother tongue. And I think, again, we risk discriminating against those students in unhelpful ways. So, for example, in the UK, English as an additional language students are consistently suspected of cheating because maybe their spoken English isn't as good as what they're writing down. And that's not fair either. There's work to be done.
There is, ACM was mentioned several times. It stands for Association for Computing Machinery, and this is one of the central professional organizations which binds together professionals from the area of computer science, including AI and so on. And I just noticed 2 years ago or 1 year ago, they started a whole new branch, discipline